What we actually did is my diary scheduled a review in India, which is a very important country and opportunity for us. And so during the day while Gao-Fei was there, we basically reviewed our India operation from top to bottom, the good things, the things that we still need to work on, the opportunity in the market, how we were thinking about the trends and how they inform us in things like product choices in India. And then the meeting we had with a partner was very much focused on their offer and how that brings value to our offer and how we work together. And so it was actually very, very interesting. And of course we got to interact with Gao-Fei before that day, and obviously I also got to have dinner with him as well, so it was a great day overall. The value, obviously we think about that a lot, and there's a lot of value for millennials to be working at HP and contributing to the discussion about the products, services and solutions we deliver to our customers, because ultimately younger people, millennials, or the whole variety of diversity and inclusion are our customers, and that's why we strive to do that. But what was interesting to me is it's the first time I've sat down and thought about, well, do we really appeal to somebody like Gao-Fei, and what would be interesting about what we do? And I walked away from that and from my conversations with Gao-Fei, that actually when you take the time to show somebody and allow them to be immersed in HP, it is very, very interesting to somebody who's interested in business or interested in what's going on around the world or around the region. And so it helps me think about, and our team think about, how do we package and market ourselves with that knowledge when we're going onto campuses, for example. Well, if you think about it, if you sort of take the standard theme when we're talking to the people whose job it is to recruit from campuses or recruit young people, and you try and benchmark, well, we are as attractive employer as company X or Y to a lot of people want to go into this particular space, and you go to the threads, which are people want to do meaningful work. They want to work for organisations that have a reputation for doing good, for being responsible citizens. And who doesn't? I think you and I wanted to do that when we joined our first employer. I think what is perhaps different is in my day, you would perhaps take less risk with your career, and you would more conform to the norms of what was expected of you in terms of hours of work or the trade-offs. Whereas I think today people expect a little more flexibility. They expect to be a little more focused on lifestyle. Not that I didn't want to do that when I was younger, I was probably more scared of the consequences, and so that's a change. Well, I had really 3 careers. You know, my first career was really as an entrepreneur, and so I worked for a short period of time for a couple of companies, and then I ended up owning my own business. And in that environment, it wasn't a large company or a large enterprise, and I didn't get the sort of training that's available to you in an organisation like HP. And so I actually learnt from my customers. And so I was able to observe, being able to see customers that were successful and customers that were not so successful. You're really able to follow the thread of what they mostly were about was they knew what their advantage was. They knew that if they went about their business in a certain way, they were going to be successful, and they tended to stay on track with that. If they're a company that was very good acquiring things, they would have a specific skills, specific capabilities, and specific investment in being able to do that. If they're a company that was changing the way a particular market worked, they sort of tend to know how to do that, or they're a company that knew how to manage operations or costs very, very well. And so I sort of took note of that from talking to my customers and working with my customers. The second part of my career was working for GE. And in GE, I learned a lot about being data-driven. I learned a lot about Six Sigma methodology. It was the first time I was in a truly large multinational corporation, and how you had to now, instead of being king of your own empire, you had to work in a huge influence of network, and the way you survived and the way you got stuff done was how you worked with people across the organisation. But there was one book and one leader there called Larry Bossidy, who was the vice chairman, and he eventually went on to run Honeywell. He wrote a book called Execution. And I've always thought that's a very good guidebook. It's called Execution, the discipline of getting things done, of being very, very focused on what you need to do, what outcome you're trying to achieve, how you're going to measure, whether you're being successful or not, and to focus on measurements that are more inputs than outputs that will dictate that outcome, and to bring realism and being realistic into the business review discussions. And so I took that from GE. At HP, where I've had the opportunity to sort of work at more senior levels in the organisation with sort of larger and broader responsibilities across geographies, you really get into one important theme, and it's really about what is it that our customers actually want to do with our products? Why will our products and services and solutions resonate with customers? And what do you need to do from an insights perspective, from an innovation perspective, to be able to deliver that outcome? And then if you take that conversation to sort of where it is today, it's about the culture that leaders get to create, and it's got to be now a culture that's inclusive, a culture where you, again, able to bring all of the people in the conversation that need to be in that conversation, whether they're your customers, whether they're people that work for you, whether they're your partners, to get the best outcome. And of course, added now today, if you're running a business today, you've really got to do two things. You've got to deliver compelling outcomes that your customers will value. The other thing you've got to do is you've got to be an attractive employer, and so you need to be the sort of organisation and have the culture that people want to work within, be creative within, and be innovative within. Energy and curiosity, interest in what's going on around them. I tend to find if people seem to know what's going on around them, they're observant, they're curious as to why things are happening, why things are a certain way, they're probably going to be successful. And of course, you know, today, as we talk a lot more about themes like AI, more and more processes are automated one way or the other, whether that's manufacturing or business processes in a banking organisation. Who can come up with the idea? Who can come up with the innovation? A different way of thinking about something. And so I think this ability to, if you're looking at a group of people now and bring them into your organisation, you're going to want them to be from diverse backgrounds. You want to understand their life experiences, and that's beyond their results. It's sort of, do they play sport? Were they in a team? Do they play a musical instrument? What else do they do? Do they participate in the community? They're kind of well-rounded, because this discussion about inclusiveness and being able to work through networks of influence requires people who can interact socially. And then you are trying to sort of think about, well, you know, from a creativity point of view, will you be one of the people who can bring ideas? And of course, as always, that they're smart. Well, I don't know that there is such a thing as future ready. What there is an iterative process of the circumstances that you're in. And so I think being adaptive and perhaps welcoming change and things moving around you, and some activity and excitement is going to get you there. I don't think, unless you're going to have someone who can predict the future, I think it's more how much intuition do they have. They're going to go through an iterative process, and are they open to, well, there may be another way for us to solve this problem. And don't forget, through all of that, people have to work hard. They have to be committed, they have to apply themselves. And I think if they do that, and I talked about being a little bit self-aware and aware of what's going on around them, they'll do fine.